I was a producer on the Billboard Music Awards for many years. And at the time, this artist was blowing up by the name of Britney Spears. I knew that on the Billboard Awards that were coming up, she was gonna take the night. She was huge already, but her team could not sell a TV special. So they asked me if I could, and I said, let me take a shot at it. And I came up with the concept of doing a special with Britney in Hawaii. Britney in a bathing suit with a big flower in her hair and that beautiful $1 million smile. I just felt like creatively it was a great idea, and they bought it on the spot.
Wow.
That was the beginning of my career.
Welcome to Read the Tape. I'm Mike Shapiro, an venture capitalist, serial entrepreneur, and a Forbes book author. Since buying a nearly bankrupt real estate firm and turning it into a multi-billion-dollar company, I have dedicated a lot of my time to coaching and mentoring young entrepreneurs, like my friend here, Rodney.
Hey everyone, I'm Rodney Mathews. You might know me from The Bachelorette, but now I've pivoted from reality TV to real estate. I am so grateful to have a mentor like Mike guiding me through the crazy obstacles that today's ever-changing business world.
What do we want the audience to take away?
Pay attention to situational awareness and
Read the tape. Welcome to Read the Tape. I'm Mike Shapiro. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been incredibly successful, and I also love helping others to find that same success. And to my right, I have...
What's up, everybody? I'm Rodney Mathews. A lot of people know me from a certain reality dating show way back in the day.
Which one?
It was called The Bachelorette. But now I am a real estate agent out here in Los Angeles and a realtor entrepreneur. Really excited to be here, Mike. So what do we have on the dock for today?
We've got two great guests. We have a Hollywood veteran. I'm thrilled about this and how successful he's become. And we also have another Shark Tank person who was on the show and how he's furthering his career. And it's all about money. How much money can we make, right?
We work hard for the money. We love that. All right, then let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, everybody. Today we have the wonderful and talented Michael Levitt joining us on the show. Now, Mike Shapiro, I know you know a little bit here about Michael Levitt. Can you please introduce us a little bit real quick?
Yeah,
I do.
Mike, what do you know about me?
Oh, now I'm on the spot. So thank you, Michael, for coming. And I've known you for years, and you're a wonderful human being, an Emmy-nominated, award-winning person. And you've been involved in multiple creative things, such as Skin Wars and many other shows, including many award shows. So tell me about how you essentially started getting into entertainment.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. It's exciting to be here with both of you. Love talking about my passion of dog rescue as well as my profession of producing and how all of that has come together to help me live my best life ever. So I started out when I was 18 years old. Actually, as a kid, my parents used to give me a hard time for watching too much TV. So you can imagine how cool that was to grow up and become a television producer and throw that in their face and say, see, this was research the whole time. But yeah, I started out just as a fan of television, and I just got caught up in the allure and excitement of watching the Academy Awards and lots of red carpet shows and just the celebrity of it all. And I knew that was something I wanted to do. In fact, at a recent high school reunion, everybody came up to me and said, we knew you were destined for entertainment. Wow. So it was always in my DNA and in my blood. So when I actually started in junior high, and I'm going to tell you this story. When I was in the 9th grade, I was the president of my junior high school, and I was in the office one day, and I got the secretary, which is the term that they use then. I would never call someone a secretary now.
Politically correct anymore.
In the office, she got a phone call, and she was like, what? You want to send a bus to pick up a group of kids to go to a taping of The Facts of Life? And I heard that, and I said, what? Tell me. And I said, I'll put it together. So I put together like the Honor Society, and this company sent a bus. We went to Hollywood. We attended a taping of The Facts of Life, and I loved it. And so I put another group together, and we came back to Hollywood, and we attended a taping of Different Strokes. Wow. And I just loved it. And my dad said to me, you seem to be good at this. Why don't you ask this woman that runs this company if you could work for her to find groups outside of your school? So I asked her, and that's the first thing. Never be afraid to ask. What's the worst someone's going to say to you?
That's
Is
true.
no.
Exactly.
I believe
And-
that.
Great advice.
Yeah. And she said, of course, if you can find any group to come to a taping, church groups, temples, any kinds of, clubs, senior clubs, I'll give you $50 commission for every group you booked.
Did that ever go wrong, though? Did you ever get a group that was like,
No.
never went wrong?
No. And get this, I was 15 years old, and I was making like $200 a week by being on the phone for like 3 hours.
Big time money. At that
That's
age. We all
good.
know that's
It was
time money.
big time money, but it was such a great life lesson. Again, not being afraid to ask and just facing any fear I have and just taking a chance and moving forward. And it was that experience of working with that lady that introduced me to this company that actually staffed the production assistants or the pages on all of these TV shows that filmed all over town. So now I'm 16 years old and I get this company to hire me as a page. And I'm living in Orange County, an hour away, and I convinced my mom and dad to let me take this job. So my mom would let me borrow her car. And I did 0 period, so I would get out at noon, drive through McDonald's, get my Big Mac and fries, and head on up to
Still love
LA.
Big Mac and fries.
Yeah.
It's a classic.
Head up to LA, and on Tuesdays and Fridays, I would work on all of these big TV shows. Meanwhile, my friends are like delivering papers, which is great. I mean, all honest work is honorable, but it was taking that chance and diving in at a young age that immersed me into the entertainment industry and allowed me to foster these great relationships that started me off.
Did you always have aspirations just to be behind the camera, or did you ever think to be in front of the camera as well?
I think for a minute I thought about being on camera, but I realized that what excited me the most, what made me the most passionate was creating behind the scenes and coming up with an idea, a seed of an idea, and figuring out how to bring that idea to life and make it a reality. And that's really what has been the most rewarding part of my career as a producer. And if I could just pick up where I left off so I can bring us up to now. So
You're producing.
well,
This is awesome.
No, I could just tell. I'm like, this man knows.
So
I want everyone to know that literally he's producing this at this point. We have no control.
yes, they do. You guys are doing great. No, so I worked as a page or a production assistant on all these shows, and one of the writers on one of the sitcoms was working on the Emmy Awards, and she saw something in me, and she asked me if I wanted to come be a production assistant on the Emmys. And this was in the 80s at the height of this show Dynasty, which you may remember,
I remember.
was the biggest show on TV. And they said to me, what?
A little bit before my
Joan
time.
Collins.
That's okay.
Joan
Do your
Collins.
homework.
No, I will.
It's okay.
Joan Collins.
It was the big 1 hour primetime soap opera. But this Joan Collins, who was known as being, the biatch of Hollywood, was on the Emmys, and they assigned me to help her when she came to be a presenter on the show. And everybody was afraid of her.
I was going to say, were you a little nervous?
I was a little bit nervous, but I plowed through it. And she took a liking to me. And I walked her through rehearsals. She was lovely to me. And then the show came, and the show was happening. It was live on the air. Wow. And I don't know what possessed me, but during a commercial break, I thought, I better check on her. So live show to millions of people around the world. I go running down the aisle, and I excuse me, Miss Collins, do you need anything? And she's British, and she goes, well, I would like a hot ham and cheese sandwich.
Oh, my gosh.
And I went, okay, I'll get right on it. So I go running out of the auditorium, and I'm like, where do I get a hot ham and cheese sandwich? So I go into the press room where they have this spread, and sure enough, they have all this like meat tray there and bread. So I cobbled together this sandwich. I don't know if it was roast beef or ham, cheese, put it together, wrapped it in foil. But now I feel like I have to get it to her right away, not realizing that the show is now live on the air. So I'm running down the aisle, which is a no-no, with this piping hot sandwich going, pass this down to Miss Collins, please. And it was great. And the producers saw my gusto and my ability
Loved it.
to like make shit happen.
Right.
And then I got into this award show loop and I worked my way up. I was a limo coordinator, then a talent coordinator, then a talent booker. And then this part is kind of interesting. I was booking talent, pretty well known as being one of the top talent bookers in town on major shows. And I was realizing that...
Let me ask you a quick question when you're talking about booking talent. So is that a skill set that you have to convince them to get onto this show? Or
You do.
Okay.
You have to craft the offer and the request, and then you have to follow up, and you have to figure out, how am I going to get this publicist that represents them to take this request when they have a pile of them? That's old school because now it's on a computer. But a pile of offers, how do I get my offer from the bottom of the pile to the top so that they will consider it? So, but here's my point, Mike. I realized that I was being hired as a talent booker on all these shows that did not have the green light yet until we got the talent attached.
Oh, wow.
And it was my creativity of coming up with unique angles to get them committed that got them on board the show. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I'm producing. I'm not just booking, I'm producing. So I'm going to start commanding producer credits. And I feel I was one of the first talent bookers to start commanding producer credits. And that's how I worked my way up to that producer title. And then from there, I just started coming up with ideas and selling shows, and the rest is history.
So you learned early on, it was like the sale. You learned early on that it was about revenue, the sale. I need this talent. What's producing this? What's producing revenue? So that's interesting. So being a producer is really being the chief sales officer in a way. Am I saying that right?
Well, the title of producer is pretty ambiguous. You see, executive producer, coordinating producer. It often has different meanings, whether you're producing in film versus, television. Usually an executive producer title is somebody that they're in charge, they're at the top. They've either come up with the idea, they've gotten the show financed, it's their production company that it's flowing through. Then when you get the producer title alone, they're usually the hands-on in the trenches, the showrunner, possibly that's doing the heavy lift on the day-to-day. And then all these other producer titles have various meanings. Some of them, like coordinating producers, are logistical. But as an executive producer now and then, for me, it starts with the seed of an idea and bringing that idea to life, producing that from A to Z. And that means putting the right team together. So it's assembling the writers, the money people, the set designers, the graphics people, the music, and creating that rundown of what the show's going to look like from beginning to end. But to your point, see, I love doing the creative. The part I hate the most is the business of it. But unfortunately,
you're good at it.
That comes with it.
Right.
Yeah.
I am good at it, but I'm not good at it. And I'll tell you why. Because so much of what I do, and I think this is sort of sad on some level, it's become almost less about how creative a person is and more about the politics and how they get along with the people at the network or the buyers.
What exactly was the first show that you sold, and how were you able to sell that?
Okay. Love that you asked me this. So I was a producer on the Billboard Music Awards for many years.
What?
And so I had a lot of relationships with a lot of publicists and talent managers. And at the time, this artist was blowing up big by the name of Britney Spears.
Wow.
And I knew that on the Billboard Awards that were coming up, that she was going to take the night, win 16 Billboard Awards, including Best Artist, Best Album, Female Artist of the Year. I knew this was her night. And at this point, Baby One More Time had come out. She was huge already, but her team could not sell a TV special. Wow. So they asked me if I could, and I said, let me take a shot at it. And so what I did was I knew that all the executives from Fox would be with us at the Billboard Awards, and that if I set up a meeting the next morning to pitch the show, they would all be on such a Britney Spears high that I would have a good chance of selling it. And I came up with the concept of doing a special with Britney in Hawaii because I thought, first of all, these executives are going to want to go to Hawaii. They're going to want an excuse to bring their family there. But also, Britney in a bathing suit with a big flower in her hair and that beautiful $1 million smile. I just felt like creatively it was a great idea. So the next morning, we pitched the show to the executives at Fox, and they bought it on the spot.
Wow.
We went on to do the special. It was huge. The next day after it aired, they ordered a second special.
Wow.
We did Britney Spears, There's No Place Like Home in New Orleans and Louisiana, where she's from. And that management team also represented NSYNC. So my third show was an NSYNC Christmas special. And that was the beginning of my career as far as being a producer that's not just hired to execute and make the shows, but sell them as well.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it's like interesting that you saw the connections, you saw how to effectively see what they wanted, to see the future, see the talent. So I mean, it's really putting it together. That's pretty amazing. That actually makes you really good at the money raise.
Yeah, and there's a lot of producers that are producers for hire. They don't sell shows, and I happen to do both. Something else that I think is kind of interesting that a lot of people don't know, but the agents that represent producers like myself, they get, we call them network mandates. So those agencies are constantly asking all the buyers, that's the linear networks, the streamers, anyone who's buying content, to send them what they're looking for. So as a client, my agent will send me network needs or network mandates.
Oh, so you're seeing.
To give me an idea of what they're looking for so that I can hopefully be targeted in my development of what I am going to hopefully pitch to them. But the trick of it is those mandates change all the time. And so often, and this is a frustration that all producers share, you could work on developing an idea for 3 months and you go into to pitch it and they already had a cooking show on that they were asking you to create. They had a similar show on. It tanked in the ratings. So by the time you pitch them, they've decided that they don't want that kind of show
you can
anymore.
put all that work in, spec work, and it's gone.
And it's gone.
Right.
The good news is the mandates are always changing, and so are the development executives. So there have been many shows that I have gone out and pitched to everybody. Pass. Thank you. Good idea. Not right timing. We don't want it. I wait 3 or 4 months, 6 months, like my show Skin Wars. Everybody passed on it. I believed in the idea. I went back out 6 months later with that same idea and got 3 offers. So much of it is timing, tenacity, and passion.
Wow. So you've seen sort of the evolution of Hollywood, for lack of a description, because what does Hollywood mean today? You know, I have a friend in entertainment, and they tell me that it's like so international, like, you know, production overseas is maybe more important than the U.S. But you've seen it sort of come from one era to the streaming era, for lack of a description, if I'm saying that correctly. Do you think it's easier for people to be producing shows in this new era of streaming, like where there's so many outlets and there's so much more capital available, or is it harder?
So that's a great question. I think that this new climate of content selling and buying, there's the good and the bad of it, because on one hand, there's more platforms, so there's more places to potentially sell. On the other side of it, the streamers have come in and basically destroyed the business model of how it works. And if any producer told you they know how it's working now, they would be lying. It is literally the Wild West, and it changes all the time. And I think we're all trying to find out the best business model and path to be successful in today's industry.
I mean, it's fascinating because it morphed, you know, as a investor or Wall Street guy watching this, you know, from the media companies being fully in control of production, the studio world, for lack of a description. So suddenly the tech companies like Apple has unlimited resources and Amazon has unlimited resources. And Netflix, which went from delivering DVDs by FedEx, I think, if I heard that correctly, to becoming sort of the juggernaut of streaming. They buy they're controlling the airwaves. So it's fascinating the changes and how you have to morph and how you have to change and how you have to stay creative. You said something earlier before you even comment on that, because I've always said that creativity always leads to wealth. Like, you have to be creative. And you're saying that it was being somewhat stifled, but I think you're staying creative in whatever has been a pushback. I think you're really staying very creative in all this. And also it's creating wealth for you, for lack of description.
Well, again, my favorite thing of all is to be creative. That's when I'm the most happy. And I think a big part of my job now is being creative and making the shows I want to make in spite of the people that are buying them. Wow. Because what happens is, sadly, I think the industry is really being controlled by lawyers, business affairs people, and finance people. It's really all about the bottom line. And I think that's really compromised the creatives in the industry. So it really challenges someone like myself to figure out how to navigate and work around that. How can I deliver the show that I believe in, knowing that I am given less money, less resources, probably a 22-year-old network executive that doesn't know what they're talking about. How am I going to navigate through this landmine to deliver the best possible product? But I have to tell you, when I pull it off, it's really rewarding. And I always feel when I do deliver a show that I'm proud of, it's a feather in my cap that no matter what happens to me moving forward, nobody can ever take that away from me.
That's great. That's a great thing.
Michael, what would you say was the turning point in your career?
I think I've had many turning points. I think selling my first show, that Britney Spears show.
Oh my God.
Have you stayed friends with Britney?
And NSYNC is crazy.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing to hear that you've done that.
Yeah. No, I'm not in touch with Britney. You asked me if I stayed in touch with her, friends with her. No, but I really did enjoy working with her. I had her on probably 25 of my shows over the years. And I certainly wish her all the best in everything she does.
Of course.
But I also want to say that someone told me once, and I've always remembered this advice. When you're presented with opportunities that feel scary, that's a good sign.
Of course.
And you have to realize everybody is scared when they're moving on to that next level. And if you can figure out how to work through those nerves and just go at it head on, you're going to master it and you're going to have elevated your trajectory. And that's always served me well as a producer. Even today, as much as I know about producing, there are things I still don't know. But, you know, maybe it's a little bit of the imposter syndrome and just sort of fake it till you make it. And I think a little of that really helps anybody in what they're doing in life.
Well, the most successful people always say that. They always feel it's an imposter syndrome, or there's always a fear associated with success. And I think that's a motivator. But I mean, it wouldn't be, you're still fearless. I mean, this is an outside observer. You're still fearless. And you're not going to let anyone say no to you, or I've been even in a meeting with you where you were pitching a show, and it was fascinating how you went around when they were saying no. You were going around, and you're really kind of a good lawyer.
I thought about being a lawyer, and I wish that I had gotten my law degree, because I think that would have served me well in what I'm doing today. But yeah, it's no is most often not a no.
Right.
And it's figuring out, when you believe in something and you're passionate about it, how to it's timing. It's figuring out how I'm going to do the workaround to get that project past the finish line. I've had many shows that I've been developing for 2 or 3 years, 4 years, that people didn't want, and I came back and revisited them and got them done.
So, Michael, real quick question. With myself and others listening, becoming young entrepreneurs, what would be your best advice for this next generation?
Wow, you know, I never really considered myself an entrepreneur, but I guess I am one, just living the freelance life where I'm going from one project to another. I think being a risk taker, being passionate, not taking no for an answer if you really believe in something, And if it were easy, everybody would do it and everybody would be successful. Exactly. So it's really, success, I think, is really reserved for those people that are clever enough and smart enough to figure out the workaround.
Interesting. How much this is? I didn't mean to interrupt. Something that do you feel? Are you a person that feels like you make your own luck, or do you feel that there's lucky breaks? Like, how do you feel about that? I always find it fascinating that people like.
There are a lot of producers that do very well because they are handed shows. Mm-hmm. Hey, so-and-so, you want to produce the People's Choice Awards for us? Or, hey, so-and-so, it's NBC. We have a Michael Bublé special. We'd love you to produce that. Unfortunately for me, or maybe fortunately, I'm not one of those producers. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason I'm saying that is because my passion and my creativity has sometimes worked against me, because I think in this world we live in, a lot of times these executives, they just want someone that's going to kind of shut up and do what they want. And I'm not that kind of producer. And
you don't want a job. You want to be creative. You want to be producing something.
Yeah. And so I've had to really hustle and make my own opportunities. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I get a little resentful and I wish that I was being handed more shows. But I tell you, when I create something and I sell it and I see it past the finish line and I see it air, there's nothing more rewarding. So I'm super happy where I'm at. Oprah once had this analogy of, in your career, it's like a track meet where you need to be looking past the finish line, because if you take the time to look at the people coming up next to you or behind you, it's going to slow you down and they're going to go ahead of you. And I think that's true. There are other colleagues of mine where I go, I could have done that. Why aren't I doing that show? And that could bum me out. But when I look at my stable of work and all the things I've done, I'm super pleased and proud of where I am in my career.
That's great. And that's a wonderful thing to hear. I like hearing that.
Thank you.
So I'd like to talk about something that you're really passionate about, and it's wonderful. I'm a huge dog person. I know you're a big dog person.
Yes, I am.
So you do a lot of dog rescues, and we have an extra guest today. So I'll let you introduce him.
We do. Henry, come here. Henry,
what's up, Henry?
Look at Daddy's doing a podcast. Come up here. Come on,
there
buddy.
There he is. Steals the show.
Hey, buddy. This is my rescue dog, Henry.
Hey, Henry.
Henry Higgins.
What's up, Henry?
Hi, Henry. What's it like? Is this your first podcast? I love you. What a good boy.
See how
Do you have anything you want to say? All right. Oh, or is this your first podcast?
That's pretty good.
Right, Henry?
I
love you.
Look how he moved his mic.
All right,
too.
we're ready for our animal questions.
Absolutely. So I know this is really one of your biggest passions, and you've been very successful. You've been an entrepreneur in getting all of these rescue dogs placed, and you've done all these shows. So let's talk about that. Tell me, how did that happen? What motivated you, and how did you stay creative? And the rewards are obvious.
What do you think, Henry? Should I answer that question? Are you getting
Sorry,
bored?
you guys are boring.
All right,
terrific.
What a good boy. Let's put you right down here.
He's like, Dad, hurry it up.
Boy. Light of my life.
That's awesome. You stole the show, by the way.
Yeah. What happened was in 2011, my sister was sadly dying of cancer. And it was at that time, thank you. It was at that time that my partner and I knew that we wanted to bring a dog into our life. And we had gone to a pet adoption, and I had seen a dog that looked very similar to Henry, and his name was Trooper, or his name became Trooper. We ended up adopting him 4 days before my sister passed away. She met Trooper. Trooper met her. She saw the joy that he was bringing to me. And I learned firsthand that adage, who rescued who, because Trooper came into my life during a very difficult time. And he rocked my world. And I learned really quickly how magical it is to rescue a dog, and how meaningful they are to have them in our lives and as part of our family. So I ended up, as a result of Trooper, getting heavily involved in dog rescue. And I in fact, took a year off from producing just to save dogs, going to the shelters, getting fosters, raising money, transporting them, adoption events. But after about a year of that, I knew that as a rescuer, I was saving one at a time, which is fantastic because they are the real heroes. But as a producer, there's so much more I could do by applying my skills to create rescue-themed programming where I could get the adoption message out on a national level. And so as a result, I produced several rescue-themed shows, including my most recent one, which is like the Puppy Bowl version of hockey. And of course, it's called the Stanley Pup. Streaming on ESPN right now.
There we go.
ESPN Plus. And it's been the most rewarding part of my career. I've done some amazing projects with major celebrities, things I will always be so proud of. But the one thing that will be my legacy are these rescue shows that I've been able to make the last few years. And to bring my passion of rescuing together with my career producing has been the most magical and rewarding experience in my career.
That's incredible. I mean, taking all that knowledge of being an entrepreneur, a producer, creativity, your passion, helping animals, which is truly rewarding, you know, getting to where it is, and then applying all of that and really being successful for hundreds and hundreds. I mean, how many dogs have you saved at this point? I mean, my gosh, it must be
I don't,
in the thousands
I
at this
don't
point.
have a tally, but I just know that when my shows air, that shelters report upticks in adoption. So I know that they're having an impact. And I've had so many people come up to me that had previously purchased a dog from a breeder and have now chosen to rescue dogs because they've learned through my shows that these dogs in shelters are not secondhand animals, that it's most often people that have failed them. And that the experience of being a dog owner is elevated tenfold when you know you saved that animal 100%. And you think, what would their life have been if I hadn't brought them into my own family? So it's the coolest thing ever.
For you to combine both of your passions and bring your creativity and your space and to allow other people to accept that change too within the dog community and saving dogs. I mean, rescuing is such a rewarding thing, like you said. And I just have to commend you for that and for creating that positive change in our communities, because it's amazing work what you do.
Well, thank you, Rodney. I couldn't agree more. And to be able to call my work something where I'm working with animals and rescue animals and helping them find homes. I mean, someone told me once, you never want to take a deal you're not happy with. And the worst thing in the world is to wake up in the morning to a job that you hate that makes you miserable. So I feel so blessed to be able to be a producer, make the kind of shows that I care about, like the dog rescue shows, and make content that's having an impact and making the world a better place.
100%. That's an incredible way to end this. I mean, I really appreciate it, Michael. You're actually what it's all about being an entrepreneur. It's really what Read the Tape is about. You know, finding your inner genius, finding your voice, which you found very early on in your life, and executing on those ideas, and look what you've changed, the things that you've changed, the creativity you've brought, the happiness you've given. So, I mean, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for those kind words, and thank you, Rodney. It's been a pleasure.
Michael, thank you so much for being here and being a part of our show today, and all the wisdom and empathy that you've given to us, and to go ahead and be on the show today. Thank you so much for your time. We're just so grateful to have you.
Thank you, Rodney. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Henry.
Thanks, Henry.
Henry.
Shout out to Henry,
Thank
too.
you, Henry.
We do have like 3 minutes.
Thank you, Henry.
All right, next up here on Read the Tape, we have from Jolly Roger Telephone Company, Roger Anderson himself from Shark Tank Season 10. Roger, pleasure having you today. Can you tell us a little bit about your company?
Oh, thank you. The Jolly Roger Telephone Company we provide telemarketer and spam filtering for you and your loved ones and your telephone mostly. I love telephones. I fell in love with a phone system in 1992, and I just love phones. And when telemarketing started happening and it just started inundating our network and everybody hated phones because of telemarketing, I said, I'm going to try to do something about this. And so I created some robots that intercept your telemarketers and keep them busy on the phone, and it turns that frustration into entertainment, and it's kind of a funny service. So that's what we do.
So I listened to, you have something on YouTube. I don't know what the link is, but we can put it at the end of the show.
Okay, yeah.
I listened to one that I was actually quite amused. And so this guy selling a car warranty, an extended car warranty.
Yeah.
And he never got the clue that this was a robotic or AI or whatever you're using.
Yeah.
And I was dying of laughter. And then I liked the fact that you had like an additional, her daughter was in and she would just talk about her DVR and then her daughter wanted something. So I was like, kudos to you. That's so interesting. So what made you try to find humor in this? Like, it's like, there are all these like spam filters and all this stuff. So what made you decide, hey, you know what? Let's just turn of events or turn it around?
It was a complete accident. I had a telemarketer swear at my kid, my 14-year-old son.
Oh, geez.
This is, back in 2014. And I was surprised. I said, why would a telemarketer, this guy's selling air conditioner services, why would he swear at my kid? And that's when I looked into it, and they're just horrible people and scammers mostly. And so I created...
well, there are some legitimate phone calls.
Absolutely. I love telemarketing, right? I love telecom systems. I love call centers and things like that. It's the unsolicited outbound telemarketing, which is most of the stuff we're all suffering through, right? So we can all relate to getting unknown callers on our phones.
Sure. I think I got 6 spam calls yesterday.
Yeah, and so if you and yelling at them doesn't help. Whistling with a whistle in their phone doesn't help. You could be a psychiatrist and make them cry and flee the building and quit their job. That won't help because somebody else will sit in that chair tomorrow and start calling you again. So I just wanted to protect my own house, and when I realized that my machine could get their human on the phone, I said, well, let's see how far I can take this. And so then I just started tweaking the algorithm into, oh, sorry, could you start again? Because I was distracted. You sound like somebody I went to high school with, or something like that, right? And they would just go on. Well, now with ChatGPT and speech recognition and voice cloning, there's no limit now with these robots. As long as you feed a proper amount of humor into it, the telemarketers will just keep it engaged. So it wasn't intended to be funny, really, but and I'm not a very funny person, but
that was funny.
Thank you. But programming these these dry robots that sound, somewhat artificially stupid, right? It could call it artificial stupidity. These robots talking to telemarketers, that combination is funny, especially when you hate telemarketing or when it's your telemarketer, right? And you're tired of that solar company calling you every day. And now you just like, okay, go ahead and keep calling. It's funny now.
So let me ask you something. Like, how do you? So it's a filter. Is it similar to these other companies where they're recognizing it's spam and then it immediately answers, or like how do you intercept the right call?
We replace your voicemail. So on a mobile phone, there's a code, or you could use our app, and we replace your voicemail. So if you don't know the number, just let it come to Jolly Roger. If it's a real person, we'll transfer it back to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
How are you doing? That's fascinating.
Well, we'll ask. We'll kind of challenge them. Say, right, because telemarketers, you always have to say hello a couple times, right? And they spoof their numbers all the time. It's really hard to keep up with.
Exactly.
Is this a telemarketer or not? Because this could be the only the second time that phone number has ever been used, right? Or if the same phone number is being used to call all of Southern California at once, then we might be able to keep up with it.
Sure.
But they just change their phone numbers or put a random number in because there's very little controls on caller IDs. I work in the telecom industry, and that's one of our weaknesses.
So they're also changing the description, the ID itself. It says like another entity, like a utility, or I've noticed that.
Yes,
which is like immediately answering.
And that's a mess too, right? The branding, the name that shows up is a mess, right? It's kind of a mess. The phone network used to be, there were not a lot of controls on it because anybody with the ability to launch a phone call, it was expensive in the 80s when all of this started happening. And so there's a lot of trust when you launch a phone call on the network. You can put any number you want on, right? Which is used legitimately in many cases. As a telecom engineer, I will, quote, spoof a number all the time when I'm making calls, and it's for legitimate purposes. But telemarketers obviously exploit that. So it's very difficult to keep up with it. So what we do is we say hello a couple times. If they don't respond or we detect that bloop, oh, hi, this is, Mr. Anderson. You know what I mean? You have that pause and that
you're
click.
switching the phone.
And then it's like, oh, this is a scammer. And so then because no telemarketer physically punches the buttons on the keypad, right? They're all using those predictive dialers so they can call.
This is interesting. Is there any, let me ask you a quick question. Are there any legal ramifications? Like I know that there's like do not call lists, but is there anything for the side
Sorry,
of...
we're out of time, I guess. No, I'm just kidding.
That was very funny, actually.
Yeah.
You're a comedian.
No. Legal, well, I mean...
In other words, I know that callers have legal ramifications, not do not call list and all those other things.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. Oh, sorry, that's what you meant. Yes,
no,
okay.
I mean on your side.
Yeah.
So you're answering. Are there legal ramifications? Like you can't spoof a spoofer, or for lack of a description?
No, nothing like that.
So it's
Yeah.
free, it's fair game.
This is this is no different than an answering machine, right?
Sure.
You've got a caller talking to your answering machine. There's only one human being on the line, and it's the telemarketer. So wiretapping regulations don't apply, and also there's a lot of regulations and rules to protect you, the consumer of a phone, right? There's the Telecommunication Privacy Act, and there's the do not call list, and there are the telemarketer sales rules and things like that. So it's almost certain that those telemarketers calling you are violating your consumer rights. And so, but there's nothing the Jolly Roger telephone is doing that also violates those consumer rights, nothing at all. And the robots are very pleasant. They're nice, they're patient,
They're fun.
they're happy to talk to you about whatever you want. And
We don't want the robots to be mean. We can't have
Nope,
that.
they're not mean at all. Yeah, they're very pleasant. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
You talked about adjusting and changing to some of the stuff that's happening, right? So in what other ways have you had to adapt your company and your business to the changing times of what's happening now in the present and moving forward in the future?
Well, I'm a telephone geek. I just love phone systems. I like programming phone systems. I'm not good with user interface. Okay. I'm not good with digital marketing, social media, smartphone apps, things like that. And so I think probably the biggest challenge as if getting back to sort of entrepreneurship in general and running a business, you've got to have a website. You've got to have customer service. You've got to have smartphone apps if it's anything complicated. You've got to provide the same level of functionality on a smartphone app that you do on a website, which is somewhat complicated, right? Because you don't want to drive people to say, well, log in on the website instead. The authentication rules of I log in here on the website. It's okay to force a login, after half an hour of timeouts, right? On a smartphone app, no, it's not okay. You've got to cache and remember who they are and things like that. So there's just a ton of that. And then don't even get me started about, because I'm just a geek behind. I would rather plug those wires together than almost anything else, right? Than sit in front of the microphone. And so I don't like getting on Twitter and promoting the company and trying to something, putting a YouTube channel together and talking about this, right? There's a lot. You guys know, look at all nobody here watching this can see, but there's 500 people over there making this thing work, right? And so, a lot of wires and screens. So anyway, it's crazy trying to run a business today. Because in the old days, it would be a yellow page ad and a phone number, right? And now it's nothing like that. So
where are you in your success strategy? Like how are you getting where you want? Are you hitting your goals? What are your goals? So
really, the Jolly Roger Telephone Company is very scalable because it's easy to just add more and more customers. We've got, the infrastructure. There are some great things, though, about today, being an entrepreneur today, and that is you can use Amazon Web Service, or in my case, DigitalOcean, to host your servers, right? You don't have to buy a lot of hardware. Running a phone system in the cloud is easy because of that. There's a lot of open source utilities that manage a phone system, et cetera. So I'm able to run the servers in the cloud, and I can just add more servers as necessary. We can support more and more consumers, more and more phone calls. It's all fine. So at this point, we're just ready to grow. We've got features. We've got the app. But growing is hard.
So
right?
you've self-funded this at this point.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
you have no other outside investors.
That's right. Yeah.
And so you were looking for outside investors at one point.
Well, the opportunity came up. I can tell you that not everyone who goes on Shark Tank auditions and goes through the complicated process of going to the right audition, things like that. Some people are invited, and we were some of the people. I guess a producer read an article about Jolly Roger Telephone and thought it would be good fun. And so we were invited onto the show.
So what made you finally decide that you did want to go on Shark Tank instead of exploring with other investors?
This was before the pandemic, so it was before COVID.
Got it.
Right. And yeah, we were like ready. Okay, this is a chance to completely change, right? It goes from a side gig, a side hustle, right, with a day job into something serious, and we're just going to hit the ground running. I would like to be the world's best answering machine. I would like to to sort of push telemarketing into obscurity. I would like every phone call you get to be wanted, right? And so. It would be with the right funding, maybe, and with the right support, it would be possible to turn the telephone into something that we all love again. Right?
So what does that look
We
like?
need this. We need this in the world.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what does that look like? Like, explain it to me. Like, with the right funding, like, what are you looking for? Like, how would you design that?
It would be. I think it would be sort of a digital marketing strategy. It would be. It would be customer acquisition. It would be things like that, right? So I've got, like I say, I'd rather plug wires together and program computers, and so I'm not good at the partnerships and the sales process and all of that. So that's probably what would be the most helpful.
So Roger, real quick, I'm wondering, since you went on Shark Tank and weren't able to get a deal done, were there still any positive or negative effects that Shark Tank had on your business and your life moving forward after that?
Yes. Again, this was before the pandemic, so I don't know what it looks like for entrepreneurs that actually sign a deal on Shark Tank and then go and work for some of those people, right? So, working for a shark, I'm assuming, is very demanding, right?
I would imagine.
And I'm assuming it would have been even more so during the pandemic and during COVID when potentially some of your business operations are affected or shut down or you're not accustomed to working remotely or things that way. So I'm not going to say it was a good that I'm glad that there was no deal struck with Shark Tank, but I just know that life would have been drastically different trying to work through that during the pandemic, where there's no income. You're back, here I am in my 50s, right, with a mortgage and kids and college and all that stuff. And, the idea of not having steady income through a pandemic, working for a very demanding, Shark Tank shark or something that way, that probably would have been tough, right? So I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, right? So, but that's okay. The Shark Tank also is, it's an entertaining show. And I'm really glad, because Jolly Roger Telephone, even though there's no visual component to it at all, we did our best, right? We brought in some vintage phones and some posters, and we acted, fun and dynamic and goofy on the thing, because it's a very whimsical service as well. But they did allow us to play some audio, so that was kind of fun. So we played some audio and had a chance to talk about it. But it was good in that way, that we provided good entertainment, good TV, and they aired the episode, because not everybody who goes through that process appears on TV, right?
I didn't know that.
And so we were glad that they put us on TV, and that was nice. So yes, the publicity was fantastic, and it was very welcome, and it was all that, and then that led to some other things, There's like a little, there's sort of a little unknown sort of string of events that take place, right? That something will lead to an article, and then something will lead to a TV thing, and something will lead to a podcast like this. And so it's fantastic, and it's all part of a chain of events.
Have you looked at other opportunities for raising capital? Have you gone to venture capital firms? Have you done, there's sort of people who've self-funded, or they reach out to their own social media for funding? Have you looked at other
We have
avenues?
not. Yeah, we're open to that, I suppose. And certainly it would be helpful. we are doing some research and development on our own, and again, that's kind of self-funded. But for the most part, we have not pursued other capital. Yeah.
So, quick question. So
Yeah.
there are sharks that replace other sharks, or there.
Yep.
I don't know how many total sharks there are.
Yeah.
6
There
or
are 5 or
7?
6. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, was there somebody missing, or something that you would have preferred? Like, would you have wished that there was like somebody that would have been on?
In our episode, do you remember? You remember it was big Ring when Amazon purchased Ring,
Yes.
the Ring
Yeah, I
doorbell
do
thing,
remember
right?
that.
And Jamie Simovic was the founder of Ring, and he had gone on Shark Tank and didn't strike a deal, but then turned this into $1 billion acquisition from
amazing,
Amazon.
yeah.
Anyway, Jamie was a guest shark on the show.
Oh, nice.
So they actually and it made sense is that they brought us on with Jamie because some of our technology was similar,
interesting.
right?
Yeah.
So Jamie, you push the button on the Ring doorbell and it launches a SIP call. It uses the same types of protocols that telecom services today use, right? It's just with a video component on Ring.
Yep.
Anyway, so he was sort of technically proficient with some of the technology that we were using, and so they said, "Well, this would be a good partnership to have Jamie on the as a guest shark, right?"
Nice.
And Robert Hershevik was not there at the time, so Jamie was sitting in for Robert. Now we found out during some of our initial research that Robert, his parents had been scammed by a telemarketer at some point. So it kind of would have been nice if Robert had been there, I think. But but again, it all worked out fine. I have no regrets about how all of this worked out. So so that's fine. But that was just kind of interesting that Jamie was brought in as a guest shark.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Was he instrumental in any advice that he was giving you?
Yeah, they were all. I mean, they're fascinating people, obviously. As a participant in the show, you don't really get a chance to talk one-on-one with the people. You answer questions and things that way, but there's no process for warming up necessarily, right? So the interaction is meant to be sort of taped.
Yeah, that's
right.
Sure,
entertainment.
nerve-wracking.
Yeah, to be better entertainment, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
that's gotta be
but it
nerve-wracking.
was a good show. It was very interesting. It's fascinating, and of course, I would have loved to pick the brains of everybody there. They're all fascinating people. Yeah.
So what made you become this person today, this entrepreneur, this risk taker, this self-funding guy? Like, what generated this, like, other than the need that you saw someone scammed and that you were motivated, you were passionate about it, but there's more to it than that. Have you always been this person to be an entrepreneur?
No, I would say no. And as an entrepreneur, there is a component of being a risk taker, right? And so like I said, I fell in love with a telephone system in the early 90s.
What do you mean by the telephone system? Like, when you say telephone system?
I was working, my first crappy job out of high school was at Sears.
Oh.
And I was up in the Bay Area, okay? Wow. And somehow, just through the course of the next few years, I ended up being the building engineer of that building, of Sears in Antioch. And it was a little tiny store in Antioch. And there I was, a 21-year-old kid, and I was in charge of the building, everything, electrical, plumbing, point of sale, everything. And that telephone system, when I discovered that it was just a computer that provided dial tone, because I had a computer, I was one of those geeky kids, right, with no friends. And so I sat, and I just sat and typed on the computer. And when I discovered that phone system was just a computer, I said, that's it. I'm in love with this thing. I want to do it my whole life. Wow. And so I developed a career from there. And then in 1999, I left the full-time work and then became a telecom consultant throughout Los Angeles. I had moved down to LA at the time. And so that, I suppose, was the riskiest thing that I did. I bought a house, had a kid, and quit full-time work and started consulting all within the same year, which is a huge mistake. I don't recommend it to anybody.
Wow.
And I'm not a particularly risk-taker type of person, right? Nor is my wife. So it was a very unusual set of circumstances. But I did all of those things, and then I just consulted in Southern California, working on telecom and just building sort of a talent stack, you might say, of skills. But it all comes down to just telephones and computers. Those are the only two things. All I did was take those two skills, mediocre skills, and then turn them into a career. And I'm very fortunate.
Roger, so I got to ask, what's next for you and your company? What's coming up for you guys?
So we're developing products, which is we're constantly coming out with, enhancements to try to make this smarter robots and easier to use for the consumers and things that way. We would love to partner with someone who could help us sort of get into the vintage landline type thing where the technology, mobiles are a little too advanced for elderly. And the elderly are it's a big demographic to get scammed. So there's a lot of landlines out there for elderly, and we have some great protection for the elderly. Wow. And so if you, are taking care of your elderly parents or something that way, we would love to partner at some point. Just try to find some partnerships with and develop this service for to sort of grow the customer base and protect more people.
Has AI, I know this might be a crazy question right now, but in this landscape that we live in now, has AI been really had a positive or negative effect on you and your business model?
I would say positive, because we're using AI.
Okay.
So we're using ChatGPT to listen to the conversation. We're feeding it some really entertaining prompts, though, right? Okay. You're a salesperson you're actually trying to pitch ChatGPT. You're trying to pitch a product that you might find at the dollar store to this telemarketer. So yeah, you want to hear what the telemarketer is, but you also want to pitch that glow-in-the-dark toothbrush at the same time or something that way, right? So we're feeding AI some really funny prompts, so that way it can keep this conversation going in such a way that's kind of entertaining for everybody.
Gotcha.
So how do we buy this? How do we get this on our phones?
JollyRogerTelephone.com.
Okay.
You can sign up 30 days for free. You have access to all the features, and we have an app. We have an app to make your own robot. You can even become your own robot and answer the call yourself or publish it for everyone to use. And so, JollyRogerTelephone.com, and then it'll just walk you through the instructions.
So
on
Jolly
having
Roger and like Apple Store, it's just the App Store.
There's an app in the App Store. Jolly
and then
Roger.
what does it cost per month after the first 30 days, obviously?
The pricing is about $20 a year.
Okay.
So,
that's it. Wow.
Yeah. No, it's very reasonable. We're trying to make it very reasonable for you to use the service. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
I really appreciate it, Roger.
Thank you.
Roger.
Good to see you.
You don't think you're funny, but you're very funny.
Well, I appreciate
and
that.
I imagine
Thanks.
you have a lot of friends. So you say you have none, but
I have two more now. Now I have two more friends. So thank you. Yeah.
Roger,
absolutely.
thank you so much for your time here today on Read the Tape. We're really grateful for your time.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Of course.
All right, so wow, Mike, I mean, we had two great guests today.
We did.
Real quick off the top of my head, I know that in regards to Michael Levitt, what he was talking about with everything that he's seen in Hollywood, and more specifically just his own passion and tenacity, which we could see today, and how he took that moving forward, just saying, no doesn't mean no now. It's just a not right now.
Yeah, that's great.
And I love that fact of, which every entrepreneur needs to know, right? Everybody needs to understand, hey, like, don't just take rejection, be able to move past that, right? And so I love that he made that.
I think that's great. I think that's an important part of every entrepreneur's journey, that no is not no.
Yeah.
The thing that I loved about what Michael said, which was interesting to me, I wouldn't say loved it, was fascinating that he talked about the changing of Hollywood and that it was less creative because where the power is and what's happening.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting from the perspective of what does that mean for the future and where is it going to go. And I also thought was fascinating is the impact on social media and where is it happening and cord cutting, and it doesn't really almost mix is what he was saying. So that was fascinating. The thing I took away from our guest from Shark Tank, Jolly Roger Telephone Company, was that he was following his passion. He was, talked about liking phone systems, from a very early age and running Sears, basically, as being the manager of, I forget how he said it. He was in charge of the building or something like that.
Yeah, he was like a mechanical engineer,
right?
And then starting from the bottom, and then kept growing with the company, right? And so even him talking about how it started in house, right? So someone calling his kid and cussing out his kid, and I'm like, oh my god, this is awful. But he saw that problem,
right,
and said, how can I fix it? How can I find a solution? So I loved every bit of that, man.
That passion, yeah.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channels.
You can find us on every platform at Read the Tape, including ones that haven't been invented. So we're really honest here, right?
Very futuristic.
Looking forward to seeing you all again.
Tune in next week for another great episode of Read the Tape.